Torah study. All right, this is Torah studies. Torah portion this week is, who's got the name?
What's happening?
Akev. Torah portion this week is Akev, and we are going to explore a very powerful idea that comes out from the Torah portion. But first, I want to ask you a question. Imagine it's the 4x4 relay race, okay? And you have, like, you're the manager of the team. You know, the Olympics, remember we spoke about Olympics last week? Kosher, not kosher. Yeah, was that last week? I think so. All right, not going to get into that conversation this week. However, here's the core question. Imagine you have the top runner on your team. It's the relay race, 4 members on the team, 4 legs of the journey. The fastest runner, where do you put them? First, second, third, or fourth? Are you with me on the question? First, second, third, or fourth? Raise a hand with the finger corresponding to the placement that you're the manager of the team, strategizing for victory. Where do you put your fastest runner? Go. I'm watching, I'm looking live, okay? I see, okay, good. I'm not gonna tell you what I see. Let me look here on the screen. Hold on, let me see. Looking around. I see lots of 4s. I see 1. Okay, Katerina's got 1. I see 4s. I think here we had all 4s. 3. You had 3, okay. Interesting. 3. I like that. A little outside of the box thinking. Okay, good. All right. All right, 1 second. Tell me why you were thinking 3.
Well,
I'm going to repeat this.
He or she would be critical if they could move a little further into it.
It'll seal the deal. Okay. All right, good. So Bert says the reason why he would choose the 3rd position for the fastest runner is build your lead, and then you're done. It's a cakewalk. All right. For those of you, Katerina, you said 1. Tell me why you said 1. You want to jump in? Why 1?
Because he's the fastest and everybody else will try to catch up, will be more motivated.
Good. So you want to get off to a good start. Good. We had so many 4s. Somebody jump in, why 4? We'll do it again online. Somebody from online, tell me why 4. Why do you think?
If you're behind a little bit, your fastest runner may get victory for you. If you're ahead a little bit, he'll make sure that you stay ahead.
Seal the deal. Okay, good. All right. I see. Look, so I think, notwithstanding the number 3 that we had, and maybe there were more that I couldn't see online, but I think that mostly people would either choose 1 or 4. Why? Typically 1 or 4. Why 1 or 4? 1 is to get off to a great start, right? With your fastest runner going first, you kind of set the tone. As Katerina said, you set the tone for the race. You kind of set the pace, which is going to be super fast. And conversely, the thought for number 4 is that your final runner should end with a bang. I'm going to ask another question. So you have your relay race team. It's your team. And 4 runners, each doing laps. They pass the baton, the whole deal. Good. And your team is victorious. And they win the gold medal. Who gets the gold medal? Which of the runners should get the gold medal? Runner 1, 2, 3, or 4? What do you think?
The whole team gets the medal.
The whole team, right? That was a trick question, which tricked no one, because everyone says, obviously, everyone, all 4 runners should get it. Why all 4? Dr. Maxey, why all 4? Give me a rationale.
Because all 4 contributed to the victory.
Good. So the answer is because all 4 were part of it. So friends, tonight, we're going to explore this from a Jewish perspective, from a halachic perspective, from a Jewish legal perspective, from a perspective of hashkafa, of Jewish, how do you translate hashkafa? Hashkafa, a Jewish outlook, a perspective, a Jewish philosophy.
Vision.
What is it?
Vision.
Right? A Jewish perspective, a Jewish vision on life itself. And we're going to see how Judaism deals with the question of who gets the credit, the first one or the last one or everyone. How does that work out? And we're going to find some perspective on this from a very unlikely source, from a verse that we could read 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, and never notice this nuance. But tonight, we're going to notice the nuance. And the verse is in this week's Torah portion, which is Akev. Akev, as the third portion in the book of Devar, in the book of Deuteronomy, Akev continues Moses' final message to the Jewish people. As we know, the book of Deuteronomy, the context of the book of Devar and the book of Deuteronomy is they're at the border of Israel. They haven't gone in yet. Moses knows that he will not cross that border. His destiny is to pass away on the other side of the Yarden, the other side of the Jordan. And Joshua, his successor, is going to be leading them into Israel. And so all he wants to do in the last 37 days of his life is give over every ounce of inspiration and information that's critical for them to know, for the people to know, trying to convey as much as he can before his time is up. He loves the people and he wants to make sure that they have everything they need to carry on the Jewish legacy into the next generation. I'm going to show, we're going to begin with text number 1 on page 72. For those of you here in person, you have the booklets. For those of you online, I'm going to put it up on the screen and let's get rocking and rolling. Okay, here we go. Text 1, chapter 8 of Deuteronomy, text number 1. Let's do this. Let's ask some people online to read because the people, so the in-person crowd reading, you guys, the online can't hear, but the online crowd reading, I believe the in-person crowd can hear. So let's try it. Makes sense. Let's see if it works. I have my volume tweaked loud. Dr. Maxley, please read text number 1. Let's see if this works.
Observe and fulfill all the mitzvot that I commanded you on this day, so that you may live, multiply, and arrive in Israel, where you will possess the land that God swore to your forefathers.
Beautiful. Thank you. So so this is Moses speaking to the people, and he says, observe, fulfill all of the mitzvah that I command you on this day, and it's going to be good for you. You'll live, multiply, and then possess the land, arrive in Israel, possess the land. It's going to be good. It's going to be amazing. All you need to do is observe and fulfill all the mitzvah. So did anybody notice an anomaly in text number 1? Wait, hold on. First, let me check with my in-person. You guys were able to hear that? It was good? It worked out? All right, good. Baruch Hashem. Thank you. Okay, good. So here's my question. Text number 1, this is open to everybody. You tell me what the anomaly is. What is unusual? Which word stands out as being a little bit weird, a little strange in text number 1?
Why does it say mitzvah instead of mitzvot?
Excellent question. Sandrine had that question as well. Good. Yes. Why does it say mitzvah instead of mitzvot? What's the difference? Mitzvah is singular. Mitzvot is plural. And if you look at the verse itself, what is the verse saying? The verse is saying, Moses says, observe and fulfill all implies what's going to follow is plural. All of the mitzvah. Imagine somebody would say, imagine a mother would walk into a room and see the children that have been playing a board game, they've been playing Monopoly, and it's a mess on the floor. Not necessarily speaking from any at all experience in my life or house. No, not at all. Just completely objective, theoretically, right? So the mother or father would come into the room and they would say, pick up all, and there are pieces to the game. And imagine the parent would say, pick up all the piece of the game. All of the piece of the game? Pieces, plural, grammar, right? Basic grammar. So here the Torah says, Moses tells the people, call ha-mitzvah, all of the mitzvah. I want you to observe and fulfill all of the mitzvah. This doesn't make any sense grammatically, but it's more than that. When you say all of the mitzvah, kol ha-mitzvah, if it's singular, so the question is which mitzvah? Is Moses perhaps referring to a specific mitzvah that being performed triggers all of this wonderful reward? Maybe it is a mitzvah, but then which one is it? And then what's the word all? Okay, so then if it's all of the mitzvot, then how come it says it in the singular and not the plural? Essentially, that is the anomaly. This word right here, mitzvah, doesn't really make a lot of sense the way it's written. Okay, so this is it's not my question. It doesn't originate with me. This question is asked by all the commentaries. Rashi deals with it. Other commentaries deal with it. We're going to begin our journey into understanding this word. By the way, you saw how we veered away from the relay race and the question of who should get the gold medal. Yeah, we're going to get back to it. But we're looking now at a verse in this week's Torah portion, Kol HaMitzvah, all of the mitzvah, which doesn't make sense grammatically. So here we're going to introduce a commentary. Text number 2. This is the Mizrahi, Rabbi Elio Mizrahi. He was a biblical commentary, who is primarily a super commentary, as you see in the bio over there, a super commentary on Rashi. What does a super commentary on Rashi mean? It means that he wrote a commentary on a commentary. So Rashi wrote a commentary, but Rashi, right? Rashi is brilliant. Rashi is a genius. So we need a commentary on a commentary to explain the commentary. All right, and now we're going to analyze the commentary on the commentary. All right, hope that makes sense. So let's go. Here's their aim, the Rabbi Elio Mizrahi. He says the following, text number 2, and David, please read text number 2. Take it away. Don't forget to unmute. There you go.
The word mitzvah connotates the category of mitzvah. It is like saying all mitzvot.
All right, so there you go. The Mizrahi says, no big deal. It says mitzvah, it means mitzvot. So your question was about singular or plural. He says, no. When you say mitzvah, it could either mean one mitzvah, or it could mean kol mitzvot, all of the mitzvot. So he says, don't get so caught up in the nitty gritty and the nuances. Don't get so grammatically correct. Mitzvah means either a mitzvah or the whole category, the whole genre of mitzvah. Kind of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example where a singular is really a plural. I don't know. It's not coming to me as an example, but basically saying that the word mitzvah could either mean one mitzvah or the genre, the whole collective category of mitzvot. So he's like, don't get caught up in that big. It's not a big deal. Kol mitzvah means all the mitzvot. It means plural. Now,
All right, fish.
what is it? Oh, deer. Oh, deer.
Or fish, yeah.
One deer, many deer. Good. So that's an example. Very good. Right. We don't say deers, although here you would say mitzvot, but you could he says you also say mitzvah, like deer. It's fine. You could. I like that. Yeah. Mark, jump in.
Or fish.
Fish. Yeah. I prefer mine gefiltered. Triple distilled gefiltered. Fred.
It says that I've commanded you on this day, but
Yes.
Deuteronomy is just a recap of the other. So it's not something that is being commanded on that day.
Wait, hold on. Say it again.
Deuteronomy is a recap of
Right.
what's been going on. So be saying that I commanded you on this day
Good.
doesn't seem.
That's another good. That's an excellent question. So the idea that Moses is speaking to the people shortly before his passing, he's telling them basically everything that I tell you today in this recap, all of the encouragement, all of the reminders that I give you, make sure that you're going to listen. So basically, he's referring to the day that he's recapping it to the people, and he's saying today. Although when we read it, it means today. But you're right. Torah was given over the last 40 years, right? Starting from Sinai, there were mitzvot coming intermittently. Okay, but either way, the point is that it was being commanded. Hold on, there's a lot of noise. I hear a lot of background noise. Where's the background noise coming from? Let's see. Hold on. Should we mute? Chazan Ben, what you got?
So it's all the Kol HaMitzvah refers to mitzvot that have been observed and mitzvot that have not yet been observed. So
Nice.
it's a mitzvah. So kol ha-mitzvah. For example, when Joseph, and I don't know if it, well, yeah, the Bnei Israel make a promise to Joseph to take his bones and bury him in Israel. And as of now, they haven't done that yet. So there's a mitzvah, and this is Rashi.
Oh, hold on, Chazan,
from
one second.
somebody.
Hold on, one second. So before you introduce Rashi, I'm going to introduce. We're going to get into Rashi soon.
Okay.
So,
all right.
so no, but you're going in a good direction. But hold on, let me set it up, and then we're going to go to Rashi, because Rashi is very powerful. But good thought to go to Rashi.
But it's constant that there's a singular and plural throughout the Bible.
Good. So
Okay,
that's the good. So that's the basic answer. Now let's take a look at text number 3. We have the Abarbanel, and I'm going to read the Abarbanel, and then I'm going to throw a little bit of commentary as I read the commentary of the Abarbanel. Abarbanel is text number 3, which you can find in your booklets on page number 73. Okay, here's the Abarbanel. He says, it is well known among the wise that when something is complete, it is viewed as a single entity despite its many components. So when you have a unit, even though it's comprised of individual pieces, a unit could be called a single entity, a singular. Therefore, the word one and the word complete are used almost interchangeably. He says the word echad and the word shalem, he says, could be interchangeable because one is one unit, shalem, complete, is a complete unit, which again, even if it's a composite, if it all comes together in one unit, you can call it one. This applies to God's Torah back inside. This applies to God's Torah as well. Mitzvot in the aggregate are one complete concept. That's what he's, look at this line. Mitzvot in the aggregate, if you take all the mitzvot together, they form one, there's one concept or one organism, if you will. Accordingly, our master Moses sometimes referred to, like Chazan Ben just said, sometimes referred to the commandments as mitzvot in the plural, for there are many, and sometimes in the singular, for they are as singular and unified as he who commanded them. So beautiful, Abarbanel says, sometimes you can call the 613 mitzvot, or you can call them mitzvah, because they comprise one will of God with different components, but it's one collective will of God. Okay, this is beautiful. These are wonderful answers. We're still left with a little bit of a problem. And the little bit of a problem that we have is, notwithstanding the fact that we can call all mitzvot one mitzvah, one unit, Moses was speaking to the people and they didn't have the opportunity to do all the mitzvot. They weren't. Let me try a different angle here. When can we, according to the Abarbanel, when can you call all mitzvot mitzvah? It's when they're all unified as one. But they weren't. The mitzvot were not all unified as one then. Why not? They weren't in the land yet. They didn't have an obligation for all of the mitzvot as one. They were partially obligated. But how could you, excellent, Doreen, how could you have called it mitzvah like it's one single holistic unit if essentially it wasn't possible for that to have been fulfilled? And furthermore, let me just add on to that point. It's not even once they step over the border, they'll have all the mitzvot. Some of the mitzvot, many mitzvot, did not kick in. Their obligation not kick in until 14 years after they got into the land. Why 14 years? Because it took them 7 years to fight the wars and 7 years to settle the land. So it was a 14-year process by which they finally settled into the land. For example, Bikurim, the mitzvah of the first fruits. So the Torah says, you're a farmer in the land of Israel, the first fruits that you get, you should give it to the Kohen. Bring it in a basket. You bring it in a basket to the temple, and you say a declaration, Arami Ovid Avi, the Aramean tried to destroy my forefather, my father, my predecessor. You go through the whole parasha, the whole story of Jewish history, and God brought me to this land, and look, here are the fruits. Thank you, Hashem. Let me give it back. Let me donate it to the temple and to the Kohen and give it to you, God, as an act of gratitude for this land. Beautiful, wonderful mitzvah. Mitzvah did not kick in. The mitzvah was not obligatory until 14 years after they stepped foot in the land. So how can you say mitzvah? Now, you might say, okay, well, Moses is talking about ultimately the whole body of Torah mitzvot that at some point would all be active and would all be obligatory. Okay, but they weren't there yet. And how could Moses at this point say all of the mitzvah that I'm commanding you today? You could say, well, he's commanding them about mitzvot that they can't yet fulfill. Okay, but it's still it still seems a little bit disjointed. Because of these questions and other questions, Rashi, and here we get to what Chazan Ben mentioned before, Rashi gives a second interpretation. And this is the interpretation that we're going to focus on today's class. It's going to get back to the relay race, and it's going to reveal an unbelievable lesson for our lives. Rashi has, in a second explanation, a completely out-of-the-box understanding of the phrase kol ha-mitzvah, all of the mitzvah. He says it's not referring to a single mitzvah in particular. It's not referring to all of the mitzvot. It's saying something else. Moses is standing before the people shortly before his death, and he's telling them, when you have a mitzvah, make sure you do kol ha-mitzvah, the entire mitzvah, all the mitzvah, the whole mitzvah, from beginning to end. In other words, if you start a mitzvah, make sure you complete it. That's what Moses is telling the people according to the second interpretation of Rashi. Let me show it to you. Let's do it inside. This is going to be text number 4. I'm pulling up my screen right now. It's on page 74 in the booklets. Here we go, Rashi. Okay, Rashi says text 4a. I'm going to read this. The midrashic explanation, says Rashi. This is not the simple explanation. It's a bit of a midrash. It's a little bit midrashic. He says, if you begin a mitzvah, complete it. For a mitzvah, okay. And here's the key line. For a mitzvah is only attributed to the one who completes it. I'm going to say that again. Rashi says, according to the Medrash, if you begin a mitzvah, complete the mitzvah. Because who gets the credit? You see where we're going with this with the relay race. Who gets the credit when it comes to a mitzvah that somebody started and someone else finished? Who gets the credit? Number 4. The one who completes the mitzvah gets the attribution of the mitzvah. Therefore, make sure if you start a mitzvah, don't drop the ball and let someone else pick it up. You be the one to get it done. That's what Rashi says. And where's Rashi get? What does this mean? What's the context? Again, go back to text number 1. Go back to the verse in Deuteronomy where Moses says, observe and fulfill all the mitzvah. What's this all the mitzvah? What mitzvah? What's all the mitzvah? All the mitzvah means from beginning to end, the whole mitzvah. Observe the whole mitzvah. Start the mitzvah and end the mitzvah. That's according to Rashi's second interpretation. This is the one we're going to focus on tonight's class. Moses is instructing the people. When you start a mitzvah, finish it, do the whole thing. Don't do half a mitzvah. Don't do 2/3 of a mitzvah. Don't even do 3/4 of a mitzvah. If you start a mitzvah, kol ha-mitzvah, all the mitzvah. Get it done. Doreen. Yeah, good. Good. Doreen's asking a great question. How do we reconcile this idea with what it says in Pirkei Avot? Lo yalecha hamalacha ligmar, that it's not incumbent on you to finish a job, right? That's what it says. You're not going to finish a job. So what does that mean here when Moses says finish a job? Are we supposed to finish a job or not finish a job? It's a good question. My understanding is in Pirkei Avot, when it says you don't have to finish a job, it doesn't mean about an individual mitzvah. It means about like the big picture. Like, solving all the world's problems. Like, we're not necessarily going to fix it single-handedly, but the continuation is Velata ben Chorin lihibatam meno. But we still can't just say, well, if I can't finish it, then I'm done. We still have to do whatever we can. But I think what Moses is saying is about an individual mitzvah, any individual mitzvah. If you start the mitzvah, finish the mitzvah. But then that last line of that Rashi is very powerful because the attribution of a mitzvah, who gets the credit? It's the one who finishes it. And as Chazan Ben said before, we have an example of this in Torah. Powerful example of where we see that a mitzvah is specifically attributed to the one who finishes it and not the one who started it. So let's bring up the screen again, and let's show this Rashi, the second part of this Rashi, text 4b. Okay, text 4b, again, page 74, bottom half. For it is written, take a look at the scriptural proof, the proof text. It says in the book of Joshua, which is the next holy book in scriptures after the 5 books of Moses. It says in Joshua, the remains of Joseph, right, that the children of Israel had brought up from Egypt, they buried in Shechem. So they buried Joseph's remains, Joseph of the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Joseph, right? Joseph, who had passed away hundreds of years prior, 200 years prior. They took his body through the desert for 40 years, and the Jewish people, it says Joseph's remains were brought up from Egypt by the children of Israel. They buried him in Shechem. So the Rashi asked rhetorically, but didn't Moses transport Joseph's remains from Egypt? So what does it mean when the verse says that the children of Israel brought up the remains from Egypt? Moses brought them up from Egypt himself. Rashi explains, yes, but because he did not complete the burial, and the Jews did, the entire project is attributed to them. Number 4. The relay race, number 4. Moses is the one, the night of the Exodus, right? We all know the famous story. Yeah, Joseph had promised, had made his children take an oath, his family take an oath that they would take his remains out of Egypt. And the night of the Exodus, Moses says, we got to do this. Where's Joseph? They couldn't find Joseph. They're looking around. He was buried under the Nile. They got him out somehow, miraculously. Huh? It was Serach bas Asher, Serach, the daughter of Asher, who was alive. She lived many, many long years because she was the one that told her father Jacob, her grandfather Jacob, that Joseph was alive way back when Joseph was presumed to be dead. And the grandfather blessed his granddaughter with long life. So she lived through the entire slavery experience and was there the night of the Exodus. Anyway, so she tells Moses she notifies everybody where Joseph was buried, and they locate the body, they locate the remains, and they pull him out. So Moses is the one who takes care of the remains of Joseph. And throughout the 40 years, he was in charge of the remains of Joseph. And then what happens? He passes away, right? And so he can't bury Joseph in the land of Israel. So the Jewish people take over. And then, right, the children of Israel take over, and then they bury Joseph in Shechem. And who gets the credit? The Jewish people, not Moses. Moses is not mentioned in the book of Joshua. And Rashi asks why. And Rashi says, because it's the one who finished the job. You could start the job, but if you don't finish the job, you don't get the credit. Who gets the credit? The one who finishes his job. So imagine the Olympics or any other race. If the Olympics, whatever. Imagine a race. You have 4 runners. The first guy, the second runner, the third runner, the fourth runner. Yeah, and they're all doing their thing. The batons are passed. It's lebedik. It's love. It's freilich. It's lively, and it's a party. And you win. Your team wins. And now it's the medal ceremony, and everyone gets up there, and you say, no, sorry. Runner 1, runner 2, runner 3. Thank you for the race. It was really good, but you didn't win the race. You didn't cross the finish line. There's one person who crossed the finish line. I'm sorry. Oh, you ran in the race? Sure, but you didn't win the race. The last runner won the race. I'm sorry, we only have 1 gold medal. It's going to go to runner number 4. We would never do that, right? That's why when I asked who should get the medal, everyone said, everyone. Right? All the 4 runners, the participants should get one team, one team for all. The 4 musketeers. Yeah, nonetheless, according to this now, it seems that Rashi is telling us that no, it only goes in the language of Rashi. She'ena nikres ela al shem hagomra. You only refer to a mitzvah by the one who completes it. It's by the one who finished the job. They get the credit. So it seems a little bit strange. It's interesting. We have there's definitely a precedent with Moses, with Joseph's remains carried first by Moses and then buried by the Jewish people, and it's attributed to the Jewish people, not Moses. And we say because Moses didn't finish a job, but it still sounds a little strange. The truth is, there's a bit of there are conflicting sources on this. I know, right? Some say. There are conflicting sources on this. See, we presented now one side of the argument. One side of the argument is it goes by the one who finishes it. What we're about to do now, I'm going to give you 3 examples. 1 in history and 2 in Jewish law, where we see that we do give credit to the one who starts even if they don't finish the job. And then we're going to be left with the question, so which one is it? Do you give the credit to only the one who finishes it, or even to the one who started it, who got the ball rolling? That's where we're going to be with this class. We'll be with a bit of attention with the question. We'll resolve it, and then we'll walk away hopefully with some life lessons. That's the arc of conversation for the next 20 minutes or so. Make sense? You guys see where we're going with this? Yes. So let me recap what we did until now in about 30 seconds. And then you're going to wonder why we needed 40 minutes, but whatever. It's 30 seconds, quick recap. So we started off by talking about relay races and who should run first, who should run last, who should get the credit. We had a conversation about that. Then we spoke about a verse where Moses says, observe all the mitzvah. Some say it means the mitzvot. Some say observe the whole mitzvah means from beginning to end, because you don't want to start it and have someone finish it, because then they're going to get the credit. And where do we see a precedent for someone starting it and someone else finishing it, and the finisher gets the credit? The remains of Joseph. Moses started it, the people finished it, and they get the credit. So we're left, see that? I told you 30 seconds. That's it. Look at that summary. So we're left with this idea that you go by the one who finished it. But now let's present the other side of the coin, because we love doing that. But before we present the other side of the coin, let me take a quick look at what we have over here. David says, oh, I'm looking back. This is a little bit of a walk down memory lane. David says mitzvah singular. Good, that was the question. David said, this day means each day. Yes. Gematria. Good. We're going to leave gematria. The mitzvah was never started. Excellent. Oh, David's asking a great question. Yeah, David's asking a question. He's saying, huh? Yeah. Dr. D, he's asking a question like this. You say that the one who finished the job gets the credit. But if there was no one to start it, then the finisher couldn't have finished. Right? David, that's your question, right? Where are you, David? Why can't I see you? Oh, there you are. I can almost, there you go. I see your thumbs up. Perfect. Yeah, so David's question is, one second. Rashi is trying to argue that the guy who started it, okay, but he didn't finish it. So you go by the one who finished it, the first guy loses the credit. But the guy, if no one started it, no one could have finished. If Moses didn't get the remains, then the Jewish people couldn't have finished the job. That's a good question. Hold that question, because we're about to present the other side of it. You ready? Here we go. Who built the Holy Temple in Jerusalem? The first Holy Temple was built by whom? Huh?
Solomon.
King Solomon. Okay. Who was King Solomon's father?
David.
King David. Good, excellent. Does King David get any credit in building the temple?
No.
No or yes? We have a
Not
mixed
really.
Okay, let's take a look at some sources. And let's see. So text number 5. The Mechilta says, interestingly enough, the Mechilta says, by the way, before we get to the Mechilta, let me just explain something. King David should have built a temple. I mean, theoretically. But when he wanted to build a temple, he asked God, he conversed with God, let's do this. God said, you have too much blood on your hands. Too much blood on your hands, even though it was important and necessary for Jewish protection to fight all these wars, and David was a general back in the day. Bottom line is, the temple was a place of peace, and it's not right that a person who had such a violent, even if it's justified, such a violent life, he took lives, doesn't make sense. It's not right that person should build a temple. So what did he do instead? He didn't build the temple, but what did he do? He purchased the Temple Mount. He purchased all the raw materials for the temple. He got everything. He sketched it out with God, the whole thing, but he didn't actually build it. So take a look at, now that's my intro. Now let's take a look at text number 5 from the Mechilta. Listen to this. From the verse, from the book of Psalms, it says, a psalm, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Habayit LeDavid. A psalm, a song to dedicate the house of David. It calls the temple the house of David. So ask the Mechilta, why is the temple attributed to David? It's the house of David. Did David build it? Solomon built it, as the passage states, and Solomon built the house, right? So what's going on here? David didn't build it. Solomon built it. So why is it called a house of David? Now you could say, well, because King David wrote Psalms. So he wrote a house of David. Okay, all right, fine. But we're not going to use that answer. We're going to go a little bit deeper here. The Mechilta says the following: rather, because David was deeply committed to building the temple, it is attributed to him. Because he was so invested, he was so desiring to build it, I'm going to massage my idea into this Mechilta because he started the process. I know it doesn't say that, but work with me here. I'm kind of working. That's the angle that I'm going. Because he started it and he was invested in it, it's called David. So what does this show us? That even if there's a relay race, and even if the last one is the one who finishes the job and builds the temple, who also gets some even slight measure of credit, the first guy. Oh, different opinion than what we had before. Rashi said, when it comes to a mitzvah, right, it only goes by after the one who does it. You started it. You didn't finish it. Get out of here. It's the guy who did it, right? Moses carried the bones for 40 years. Doesn't count. It's only the Jewish people that actually bury the remains of Joseph. They get the credit. Okay, that's one opinion. Now we have what seems to be a sense that you go by even the one who got it started. I want to give you two more examples. And this is now where we get into, I said before, we're going to go another historical event. We're going to use a historical event and two examples in Jewish law. Here we go. Let's talk about real estate. Let's talk about houses. Strong market nowadays. That's what they tell me. Oh, can't even buy a house even if you wanted to, right? Oh, strong market's very strong. Great time to sell, but then where are you going to live, right? Unless you have another place, right? It's good to sell now, but you can't buy anything. So might as well stay put, and supply and demand, the whole deal. Okay. Or so they tell me. Imagine this. Imagine Ruvain. We're going to use three people: Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. That's what we do when we have theoretical names, where you go by the tribes: Ruvain, Shimon, and Levi. Ruvain has a house, and Ruvain wants to sell the house. He's looking for a buyer. Shimon comes to him. Shimon's a broker, and Shimon says, I got a guy for you. Shimon tells Ruvain, I have somebody who wants to buy it. His name is Levi. Aha, you with me on this? Ruvain has the house. Shimon is the guy with the idea. I have a guy, and Levi is the potential buyer. And Reuven says, you know what? Thank you very much for letting me know about Levi. I don't like Levi. I'm not going to sell him the house. I don't like him. By the way, am I advocating that you shouldn't like Levi? No, you should love Levi. You should like Levi. But this guy, Reuven, doesn't like Levi. So he tells Shimon, I'm not going to sell it to Levi. I don't like Levi. Are you with me so far in the story? So Shimon says, all right, I tried, and he goes home. Guess what the next phone call is from Reuven? To Levi. Yeah, you knew what was happening. Of course he likes Levi. You thought he really didn't like Levi? He loves everybody. He loves Levi, especially when Levi's going to buy his house. So why did he tell Shimon no? Unmute yourself if you can tell me why he told Shimon no. Commission, right? Just make him the commission. There you go. Right. Happens all the time. So listen to this. So Reuven told Shimon, Levi, get out of here. Then he calls Levi. He says, Levi, I hear you want to buy. Are you in the market for a house? Just asking. Levi says, sure. The deal is done. And now the house is sold to Levi. And now Shimon goes to the rabbi. And he says to the rabbi, Reuven's a liar. And he's a cheater. And he's a thief. You know what we call that in Hebrew? In Yiddish. Hebrew Yiddish. A ganef. He's a ganef. He's a ganef. He stole my commission. I had the idea for Levi. He told me no. He lied to me. Then he called Levi and he sold him the house. I deserve a commission. You know what halacha would say? What do you think halacha would say? He owes the commission. 100% owes the commission. 100% owes the commission. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't fool around. But let me give you a twist. Even that wasn't so simple. I'm just telling you the halacha. But now I'm going to give you a twist. You ready? You guys, everyone's held cup. You guys got this? I know we're deep into the class, but held cup for a second. Match, same scenario. Reuven has a house. Shimon gets on the phone, says to Reuven, I know you're selling. I got a buyer. His name is Levi. And Reuven says, no, I'm not interested in Levi. I don't like Levi. They hang up the phone. Now Reuven calls Yehuda. Fourth person. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, now Yehuda. Yehuda is also a broker, a real estate guy. Reuven calls Yehuda and says, can you broker a deal for me? I'm going to give you commission, pay the commission. But he likes working with Yehuda. He likes working with his guy. He says to him, call Levi and see if you can make a deal. He makes the deal. He gives the commission to Yehuda, to his guy. Okay, so yeah, you're with me on this. So the first scenario was he cut out the broker altogether. The second case, he didn't cut. I mean, he cut out the original broker, but he ultimately paid a broker. He paid a guy to get his thing. He paid a guy the commission. You with me? Yes. Now Shimon comes to the rabbi, to the court, to the Bet Din, to the Jewish court, and says, it was my idea. He took my idea, gave it to another agent, gave it to another broker, gave it to another real estate agent, and I want a commission. Still not right. He didn't save all the commission. Sorry, he didn't circumvent, right? All commission. He paid a commission, but I want my cut. I brought up the idea. So what's halacha on this one? Do you pay? He already paid his commission. Was it 3%? How much? What do agents get? 3%? 5%? Depends. Okay, fine. Whatever. Okay, let's just use a round number, 5%. So he already paid 5%. But now the other guy, the original broker, says you should pay me. So what do? What's halacha on this? Let me share with you the text. Let's look at inside. These questions have come up over the centuries, over the millennia. These are questions that are very well discussed in Jewish law. Let me give you the bottom line. Okay, here's the bottom line. Text number 6. Okay, text. Oh, by the way, who is this? The Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Sulis, Shulchan Aruch, Code of Jewish Law, right here. Reuven. I even gave you the same names. Reuven had a house to sell, and Shimon, an agent, proposed to sell it to Levi. Reuven replied that he doesn't get along with Levi and he doesn't want to sell it. So if Reuven then sold the house to Levi through a different agent, who I called Yehuda, Reuven, listen to this. What's the halacha? Look at it right here, black and white. Reuven must pay Shimon a commission. He already paid a commission to Yehuda. Pay another commission. You with me on this? You cut out the first guy. You went with another guy. You got to pay the first guy. Why? The implication here is because he was the one that first brought up the idea of Levi. Okay. Now, you might be scratching your head and saying, what is this? I can't choose my own agent? I have to go with the first guy? What if I don't like the agent? I have to go with the first guy? Okay, it's a good question. But just before we question it, let's just take a second to absorb it. We're absorbing it. We're absorbing the information before we question it. And we're saying, okay, so here's what's happening. There was one agent that suggested it. You told the agent a lie. You said you don't like Levi. It wasn't really about that. You just took the idea, gave it to another agent. That other agent made the deal. Halacha says it's not right. You messed over the first guy. You took away his commission. You got to pay a commission to the first guy. Now, how much commission? Text number 7. The Noid, the Yehuda. I love learning halacha with you guys. I love how sweet is this on a Wednesday night to be able to learn Noid the Yehuda with you together. Mm-hmm. Text number 7. It's like it's Gan Eden. This is paradise. What we're doing right now. The
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I had the honor of serving with the Noida Yehuda's descendant.
Nice.
And he told me a personal story.
So hold on.
Wait. So the story is really quick.
No. Hold on, Chazan. We mamash have to blitz through this right after the class. We're gonna do the story. That's gonna be the
all right.
That's the dessert after the class. Okay. So take a look at text number 7. The Noida Yehuda says, in my humble opinion, right, near Lafianias Daiti, according to my humble opinion, Rabbi Moshe Isserles, the Ramah, was referring to a percentage of the commission, not the whole commission, for the first guy. For certainly the second agent also has a claim to the commission. Therefore, they're each entitled to a portion. So just to clarify, you give the second agent, Yehuda, you give him the commission, but the first guy says, but I brought up the deal. I was the first one that brought up the deal. Halacha would say you have to pay him a commission, not the full 5%, maybe 1%, 2%, whatever that is, you'll figure it out with the Rav, but you can't just cut him out. It was his idea. He needs to get some credit. Now, I need to tell you another situation that is similar. What about shadchanis? You know what shadchanis is? Shadchanis. You know what a shadchan is? A shidduch. Let's start with words here. A shidduch means a match. A match. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find, catch me a catch. Shidduch is a match. A shadchan is a matchmaker. Shadchanut, shadchanis. I don't know. It's saying in shadchanut.
No other way to say it.
Shadchanis. Shadchanis means the gelt that you give, the money that you give to the matchmaker. This is a very special thing. In fact, breaking news. I don't think anyone here knows this. There's no way that you would know this unless you have my phones tapped, which is also possible at any point in time. I was approached by Kahat Publication Society, the Chabad publisher up in Brooklyn, to write a book on the idea of shadchanis, on a shadchan. There's an incredible discourse from the Alter Rebbe, from the founder of Chabad, about the role of a shadchan and about how a shidduch, the punchline is, a shidduch has to come through deception. Why? Because it's such a holy light. I know I'm giving away too much right now. It's too much too fast. But such holy light for a shidduch to be brought into the world, it has to be smuggled in very, shall we say, devious means. So that's why a shadchan is allowed to say things that aren't, whatever, you'll figure it out. It's a perfect match. Really? Sure. Maybe. Anyway, but back to the story. There's a surreptitiously. Now, so there's an age-old custom that almost is halacha. A shadchan, you got to pay. You got to give shadchanas gelt. You got to give money for the shadchan. Someone makes a shidduch, someone suggested, the boy, the girl, the match, puts it together. You got to give money. It's a skula. I cannot tell you how many stories there were about people that had challenges, whatever, and they go to the rabbi, to the mystic, and the mystic says, did you pay the shadchan? No, make sure you pay the shadchan. You don't mess around with that stuff. Getting back to the story. What happens if one person suggests something and it doesn't go anywhere, and then another person suggests it, and it hits the same match? So who do you give shadchanas gelt to? Are you with me? It's the same question with the real estate. Who do you give the shadchanas gelt? Who do you give the money to? The first one who suggested the match and it didn't go anywhere, or the second one that followed through? And sometimes you can have 3 or 4 shadchanim involved, and maybe they all suggested the same name. So who do you give? You know what the answer is? You give them all. You give them all. That's the age-old custom and tradition. You give all the shadchanim that bring it up. You give them a little piece. Maybe the last one that saw it through, that was hand-holding, so to speak, to the shidduch to make sure it happened, or to help it happen. Maybe that the last shadchan you give the bulk, but you give something to everybody. So back to the story. So we have now another example of where you give the one who started it, even though they didn't finish it. So you have King David, who started building the temple or started the preparation for the temple, who gets some credit. It's called the House of David. You have the case of real estate, where there's one agent and a second agent. The first agent suggested it. The second agent made the deal happen. You give some percentage, a commission, to the first agent, right? To the first runner. And in the case of shadchanis, of a shadchan, you give some money to the first one, even though they didn't finish it. Just to show you this text inside very quickly about the shadchanim, take a look at text number 8. It seems to me, as I've ruled on many occasions, that if the initiator of this match failed to secure the deal, I love that, secure the deal, and other matchmakers secured it, he is entitled to a finder's fee only if the others did not conceive of the match. Oh, I'm sorry. This is answering the question. All right, hold on. Whoop, slow it down, getting ahead of myself. So hold on 1 second. Let me present the question, then let me answer with that text. So the question is, so which one is it? We had Rashi's opinion before that says you only go by the last one who seals the deal. You give credit to the final one who crosses the finish line. That's the one who starts the mitzvah. Get out of here. It's the one who finishes the mitzvah. That's where it's at. And then we have all these other examples of people who started things and get credit. David started the temple, he gets credit. The guy with the real estate deal gets credit, who initiates it. The matchmaker, the first one who came up with the idea, they also get credit. So we see you do give credit to the one who initiated. So we're left with a question. Which one is it? Is it that you only give credit to the last one who finishes it, or to every helper along the way? Who gets the Olympic gold or the gold medal? The fourth runner, or 1, 2, 3, and 4 What's the answer? Here's the answer in short, and then we're going to draw a personal lesson and we'll close it up. The short answer is like this. If the first initiator, if the initiator did not contribute anything substantial, let me explain. If everything could have happened without that first initiator, for example, in the real estate, if Reuven is looking to sell his house and Shimon says, hey, I got a buyer, Levi. If Yehuda, the second agent, knew about Levi also, and he would have suggested Levi. And so the first agent didn't really make anything happen that couldn't have happened otherwise, then he does not get a commission. You with me on this? In other words, if the only way the seller of the house knew about the potential buyer and then told the second agent about it is because of the first agent, if that's the only reason he knew the name Levi, then you have to give the first guy the commission, even though he didn't actually, it's a referral fee. But if you don't need the referral because you know about the guy anyway, then it doesn't count. So now we have more nuance in this, and there's no contradiction. In all the cases, you look at the one who started it or the other participants. How necessary was it? So, for example, in a shidduch, in a match, if the other shadchanim know about if the other matchmakers know about these two individuals and they don't need the first one to suggest it, then the first one indeed does get cut out of the shadchanas geld, of the money, because they're not adding anything. And this is what we have in the text that I started, and now I'm going to finish, and then we're going to get to the personal lessons and close it out. Text number 8. It seems to me, as I've ruled on many occasions, says Rabbi Yaakov Poppers, that if the initiator failed to secure the deal and other matchmakers secured it, he is entitled to a finder's fee only if, here we go, the others did not conceive of the match on their own. In other words, if others are carrying the first guy's idea to the finish line, you're carrying that guy's idea, he gets a cut. But if they had their own idea, they didn't need that guy's, they had their own idea, then there's no fee. In that case, because the initiator contributed the idea, if that's where it did come from, then he is entitled to a fee in accordance with local custom, though he failed to complete the deal. However, if the subsequent matchmakers thought of the match on their own and were unaware that the first matchmaker had thought of it previously, the first matchmaker did not contribute anything to the match. Had they not come along, his initiative would have been forgotten. Therefore, I see no reason for him to collect the fee. If the other shadchanim said, hey, we have a great idea, and you're the parent of the child, you're like, oh, some other guy had that idea, but he just said the idea and then walked away. And now another shadchan has the idea, and they run with it, and they put it together. You don't have to go back to the first guy, Yankel Shmerel, the first guy, the first matchmaker, because he didn't finish it. He just had an idea, but it did. So the litmus test is like this. Could the finishers or the finisher, could they have done it without the initiator? If the answer is yes, then the initiator doesn't do anything. If the answer is no, then the initiator is important. Going back to the relay race, and this was mentioned before in the comments, I think David mentioned it. Can runner number 4 cross the finish line without runners 1, 2, and 3? And the answer is no, right? You had to pick up on the momentum of or after the ground was covered by the first runners. Therefore, it's material to the victory, and therefore they get the credit. What about Moses and Joshua? How come Moses got cut out of the credit of carrying Joshua's bones? The answer is because Moses didn't have to carry Joshua's bones. The people would have carried Joshua's bones. They only gave it to Moses because he was Moses, right? As the Talmud says, which I'll share with you a text right now. Very quickly, the Talmud says in text number 9, if Moses had not transported Joseph's remains, would the Jews not have transported him? Does the verse not say, in the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up from Egypt, they buried in Shechem? They said, leave him. It is more honorable for him to be handled by an extraordinary person than by ordinary people, which means that Moses was not essential to the transportation of Joseph's bones. It's just that Jewish people were going to handle it themselves collectively as a nation. It's just there was Moses, so they said, who better to carry Joseph than Moses? But it's not like Moses was the initiator, without which no one would have come up with the idea to transport the bones of Joseph. Does that make sense what I just said? Yes? It's akin to the real estate deal where everyone knows the buyer, Levi, is looking for a thing. So the first guy that suggested did not add anything, out of the ordinary. So here Moses also, although he physically was involved in it, but even without his involvement, it would have been done, and therefore he doesn't get the credit. So we have a bit of a nuanced approach as we close out tonight's class, and we walk away in a moment with a lesson. And what's the nuanced approach? Like this. When it comes to a mitzvah, here, there's two lessons, maybe 3 lessons, I'm not sure yet. When it comes to a mitzvah, we'll see. When it comes to a mitzvah, what's the message? Start the mitzvah and finish it. Ideally, you start it, you finish it. That's it. That's the first lesson. Second lesson. If you start it and you don't finish it and someone else finishes it, yeah, you might get the credit. You might not get the credit. It depends on how much they picked up, how much they needed your participation. But either way, they're for sure going to get the credit. So therefore, revert back to rule number 1, finish the job, right? Don't risk getting cut out of the commission. Not like we do a mitzvah for the commission, by the way. We do a mitzvah because it's the right thing. But if it's the right thing, then do it, right? And Doreen said, but we don't finish a job. Okay, but this little piece of the job we should finish, right? We may not be able to finish single-handedly the whole job, but this piece of the job that we started, we should finish it. This speaks volumes to how we live our lives. We've all taken resolutions. New Year's resolutions, birthday resolutions, random Wednesday night, July 28th, 2021 resolutions. We take resolutions all the time. You know, tomorrow I'm going to do this. Starting from today, I'm going to do that. We have all these big ideas. And very often, or sometimes, could happen that we end up losing steam. We got excited about something. We took a new commitment. We were all gung-ho. And yes, this is going to happen. And it's going to be different this time. And then as time went on, somehow we lost steam and we dropped the ball. So tonight's class is hopefully some words of inspiration on this very topic. Don't drop the ball. Don't drop the baton. I think I literally ended last week's class with "Don't drop the baton," but it's the same. It's not the same message. It's a bit of a different twist to it, right? It's a different angle tonight. It's the message here is don't lose sight of the goal. It's not easy to run the whole race and cross the finish line. It's not easy. No one's saying it's easy. It's very easy to get started and then to lose steam, and then hopefully somebody else picks it up. But as Rashi tells us, and as Torah tells us, even if we might get credit for the one starting it, let's get credit for the one that finishes it, right? Let's get credit for the one. I'm not saying we should cherry pick mitzvot, which means, like, at least we used to call that in hockey. We used to play hockey in Pittsburgh. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Mario Lemieux, Yarmir Yager. I don't know if you're a hockey fan, but these were like the guys. Anyway, the Penguins. So cherry picking was, you know, when you stand in front of the other team's goal, because we don't have icing when you're playing with kids in a park. There's no icing. Again, I'm getting very technically hockey here, technical on hockey. But you could stand in front of the other goal and then somebody passes it to you and then boom. Like cherry picking. You're like right there, or basketball. You're like under the hoop the whole time, waiting for a pass to finish it. It's like, no, you got to run up and down. So not suggesting that we wait for other people to drop the mitzvah and then take it home, right? Cherry picking a mitzvah. No. We should start the mitzvah, and then we should continue it. Doesn't mean we can't pass. It's good to get other people involved in a mitzvah to share. But sometimes there are mitzvot that we're the most well-suited to finish the job because we started it. So I'll give you an example that the Rebbe gives. Imagine like a social mitzvah. When I say social mitzvah, let me explain. Like caring for an elderly neighbor, somebody in need in the community. So you develop a relationship with them. You know, you have a sprach, you have a relationship, you have a rapport, is it the word? Rapport with them. So you call them and you shop for them and you bring them food and you cook. That's a whole thing. So to tell the person, you know what, someone else is going to start doing it. It's not the same thing. Why? Because they're used to you and it's been going in a certain direction. And so this is an example that the Rebbe gives, where it's important that the person that started it should finish it. Yeah, sometimes it could be that it's seamless transition between one and another in the same mitzvah. But we're encouraged to not necessarily, drop out, tap out when it comes to a mitzvah, but rather see it through to the end and finish it. And finally, Yeah. So Doreen's asking a practical question. What happens if physically we can't finish the responsibility? Yeah. Obviously, if you can't do it, you can't do it. But as the Rebbe says, it's in one of the texts here. The Rebbe says sometimes you make a cheshbon, you make a calculation. I can't do it. But how do you know that your calculation is a liba de emes, is really true? I'll show you. You know what? If you mentioned it, let me show you that text. It's a powerful text. The Rebbe says in text 11. Take a look in the booklets, page 79, text 11. Self-love and the desire to choose an easier task can sometimes blind us into assuming that the Torah requires us to retire from our current obligations. You see that? A person might say, Torah, I can't do it. And now that Torah would tell me to drop it because I have too much. But how do we know that that's real and not self-love and the desire to get out of something difficult? If we examine and re-examine carefully and objectively, these assumptions might be proven wrong. The Rebbe says, be very careful before we just drop a good deed saying, I can't do it. I can't tell you whether you can or I can't, no one is to tell anyone else what they can or cannot do. It's up to us. But the Rebbe says, just FYI, be careful when you make that decision. Like, you know what? I can't do it anymore. And I'm justified in not being able to do it anymore. Just be like super duper careful and just check in maybe a few times to make sure that that's really true and not an excuse to get out of something difficult. Again, this is not a criticism. This is just a perspective that you asked and the Rebbe literally addresses in this text. I want to conclude with the final message that the Rebbe shares in this talk. And that is Mashiach, right? Mashiach. It's been a while. We've been waiting for Mashiach for a while. We've been in exile for now 1950 years plus. So Mashiach, we all want Mashiach. We daven for Mashiach. Even if we don't think we want Mashiach, everyone wants Mashiach. Mashiach is a better world. There's no one that doesn't want that. Everyone wants Mashiach. So the question is, do we say, look, who are we to bring it? It'll happen when it happens, and that's it. The best we could do is what we can do. That's one approach. That's the approach of passing the baton. The Rebbe says we have to be much more dedicated than that. Our perspective should be, it's up to us to cross the finish line. It's up to us. Unlike what it says in Pirkei Avot, Lo alecha amlacha ligmar, it's not upon you to finish a job. The Rebbe said it is upon us to finish a job. And I want to end with this text, and this will be the last one. I think I said I'm going to end with the text probably 3 or 4 times, but don't hold it against me. This is it. Here we go. Text 12a. Although Jews in previous generations were more spiritual and more observant in Torah mitzvot than our generation, nevertheless, the mitzvah is attributed to the one who completes it. The redemption will come in the merit of mitzvot performed by Jews in this generation, who will complete and conclude the task on the eve of Mashiach. This should indeed, it does encourage each of us to increase our observance of Torah mitzvot, thereby hastening our redemption by the righteous Redeemer. And it is quite possible that after a lengthy period on the job, the Rebbe says in 12b, we can grow lax. We might figure that it is time to hand the reins to another, and we will offer aid and counsel. We'll be consultants. In these moments, remember the Torah's instructions. If you began a mitzvah, complete it. Since you began the work of spreading the wellsprings of Torah and Chassidus, it is your obligation and privilege to continue and to complete the task. And when we resolve firmly and truly to continue the task of disseminating the Torah in general, Chassidus in particular, God will aid and empower us to overcome our difficulties. Together with all Jews, we will conclude the task and usher in our righteous Redeemer, verily and speedily in our times. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
So what's the final message? Individually, we have many mitzvot that we're doing. Let's not stop. Let's keep on doing them and complete our tasks. And our good resolutions, we should see them through and be encouraged to see them through. And on a larger level, it's up to us to bring Mashiach right now. Yes, the other ones ran a great race, but it's up to us to cross the finish line. And let us not say, well, I was passed the baton, I can pass it to someone else. No. If we started it, let's finish it. Let's bring Mashiach now. All right, thank you for joining me tonight at Torah Studies. I hope you enjoyed it. I personally, you can probably tell, I personally love tonight's class because we had, biblical analysis, multiple commentaries. We spoke about sports a few times. We had some questions in Jewish law. We had real estate. We had shadchanis, scout. It's flying. We had a Noida B'Yehuda that we're talking about, and we're going to hear a story soon about that. And a message, a powerful message about the idea of perseverance. Really, grit and perseverance to see things through. May we all have the grit and perseverance to finish a job. All right, let's hear the story. Chazan Ben, take it away, and then we'll open up the questions.
So I'll be real quick. I had the honor and great privilege of serving with Rabbi Saul Landau. I don't know if the explanation of the Noda B'Yehuda, his last name was Landau, and he lived in Germany the same time as Moses Mendelssohn. And there's a story of their meeting. And so Noda B'Yehuda means known among the Jews, or known in Judah or Judea, right? And Noda means known or well known. And so Moses Mendelssohn says to Rabbi Landau, to the Noda B'Yehuda, he says, "You are the Noda B'Yehuda, known amongst the Jews." He says, "And I am Noda B'Goyim. I am well known among all the non-Jews." So that's the story.
Rabbi Landau, it's a funny story that the rabbi would say that about himself. But what's interesting is the Noda B'Yehuda, there's so many stories, many stories about him. He was a genius, a righteous man, and a tremendous leader. I'm trying to remember some stories that I've heard. It's not coming to me right now, but just amazing stories. He was a special guy, but halachically also a Jewish legal expert, and his responses are still studied to this day. And
I'll tell you what his descendant did. He retired from
hold on
the
one second.
rabbinate.
Yeah. But Mendelssohn was saying that about Rabbi Mendelssohn was saying about himself. He was saying that you're Noda B'Yehuda, you're known amongst the Jews. I'm Noda B'Goyim, I'm known amongst the nations. So that was him saying about himself that he was, he had taken a different direction. Again, I'm not sure that this is,
Well, he was he was
being self-deprecating. He was being self-deprecating, but it's an interesting story. Okay.
But anyway, just really quick, what his descendant did was so similar to what the original Noda B'Yehuda did. He retired from the rabbinate as an emeritus and got a doctorate in psychology.
Interesting.
And started a foundation. And the rest of his life, he dealt with adults that were having midlife crises, especially in their work, and counseled people for the rest of his life. And he was really so special.
And I think it kind of ties into tonight's class, right? Which is we start work or we start something, and then
you don't have to. Yeah, but Pirkei Avot also says mitzvah ba'al yadcha tach mitzana.
Right.
So
grab the
get
mitzvah.
an opportunity for a mitzvah, go do it as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I need to mention one more thing that I forgot to mention in the class. Remember the context of this conversation. Moses is speaking to the people shortly before his passing, the people who are going to go into the land, and understand the subtle, like what we would call the background of this. Right? Think of the background. The reason why they were delayed 40 years is because that original generation dropped the ball with the sin of the spies, right? They dropped the ball. They didn't finish the job. They didn't go in, or else they would have been in by now. They dropped the ball, and only the next generation got in. Moses says to this generation, don't drop the ball and pass it to someone else. You get the job done once and for all. Make it happen. All right. Any questions, comments? Good. Made sense? Yes. Checking in.
Rabbi, one quick question.
Steve. Yes.
Now, with respect to who gives the credit,
yes.
we're talking about credit is given. With respect to a mitzvah, it is Hashem that gives the credit, clearly.
Right. Yes.
And so, as humans, and even rabbinic edict, it's still as humans. What gives us the right to say what Hashem will do?
Good, excellent question.
Yes, good. I admit it's oral Torah.
Yeah.
And so we could say that it was handed down by Moses, but is there a different answer to that, to my question?
I like your question. In other words, your question is pleasure mark. Your question is, who are we to say who this one gets it, that one gets it? It's a good question. I don't know. If somebody asked me, I would say, I don't know. What we did tonight is explore what the great rabbi said. How did they know? I think that's your question. They had their sources. They had their ways of knowing. I don't know, but the objective here is to tell you what it says in the books. Your question is where's the source? I'm sure if we look through the responsa, they would have probably some verses or some Talmudic passages that speak to these ideas, some more original sources that kind of point in this direction. I'm sure that it's not just, a thought that somebody came up with. I'm sure it's grounded in some elements of scripture and some elements of I was about to say sorcery, but not sorcery, sources. That would be something else, different class.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Hold on one second. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The real estate law would be the same today. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not a theoretical question. It's a practical question, right? Somebody says, hey, I see your house is for sale. I know a guy. And you're like, oh, interesting. And then you tell your agent that name. And the first guy says, hey, I gave you that idea. According to halacha, not the full commission, but the person that gave the idea deserves something, because now if you had the idea already beforehand, or the agent had the idea and you didn't need that idea, it was superfluous, that's one thing. But if you use that idea, if it was an integral part of the final deal, that's why, right. Yeah, Bert's saying that's why they have written contracts. Yeah, but even in absence of a written contract, we got to do what's right. Yeah. 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 Right. So Doreen is saying that her son in real estate, so when there's a call that comes into the office on a Shabbos or a holiday for him, but somebody else deals with it because it's on a Jewish holiday. So do they both get something? They both get something because, right. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. These are real questions. Adina Malka, you had a question.
Oh, would you give me a recap on Moses? He brought the bones out. Are you saying he didn't get the credit?
Yeah, I kind of flew through that. So thanks for asking that. So let me just explain and hopefully clarify. So essentially, Moses was the one who carried the bones out of Egypt and was the one kind of overseeing it. And yet the Jewish people get the credit and not Moses in the verse in Joshua. And the question is why? And the answer is because Moses didn't finish the job, but he started it. And we said that even if you started, but you were an important part of it, then you should get credit. So the understanding here is that Moses, although he was part of it, he didn't play a critical role without which it wouldn't have been done. In other words, the definition of getting credit as when you're part of it, the definition of that, the criteria is that without you, it wouldn't have gotten done. Without Moses, it would have, well, I guess there's no Exodus, but theoretically, without Moses carrying the bones of Joseph specifically, it still would have been carried by the people. The people would have done it. They actually were considering doing it themselves, but then when they saw Moses, they said, well, which one of us is greater than Moses? Let's let Moses carry it, because that will be the greatest honor for Joseph to have Moses carry it. But it's not like without Moses, it wouldn't have been done. Whereas, so in that case, when it's not an integral part, yes, he carried the bones initially, but it could have happened without him. It didn't need him to happen. Therefore, he doesn't get the credit. Again, who am I to say he doesn't get the credit? I'm just sharing what the Talmud says, what Rashi says. These are the sources that talk about it. But anyway, yeah.
But he couldn't finish the job because he wasn't.
I know,
allowed to go
right?
to
Because he
Israel.
passed away. Yeah, listen, I hear the question. I hear the question, but it's telling us. To me, it's a focus less on did Moses get the credit or not, because I revert to what Steve said, which is, who am I to say who got the credit or not? But it's more of a kind of a framework here, that when someone plays a critical role in something, then they play a critical role. When it didn't need them to happen, then it's less of a critical role. So the message for us is play a critical role, get the job done, and experience it. Okay. All right. I'm going to close it out. It's great to see you all. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you, please God, soon. A few things to mention. Thank you. A few things to mention. Number one is we have Daily Power Parsha Thursday and Friday. Sunday is our In-Town Jewish Academy barbecue. We could call it first annual or not first annual barbecue on the Beltline. We have incredible food, and it's going to be a lot of fun with good friends from our IJ community. So join me at 5 p.m. on Sunday for our summer Southern barbecue. That's right here at Chabad on the Beltline in the back of the building right adjacent to the Beltline. So that's Sunday, and then next week, the classes continue. Take a look for the new series that we're starting. We have one called 60 Days. We have a Jewish scribal workshop. We have a chauffeur workshop that we're about to announce. It might be up on the website already. So take a look at all the good stuff, and don't forget to sign up and share it with your friends. Okay, we'll see you guys. Take care. Laila Tov. Have a good night, everybody. Bye.